Stay ready, always be ready. If you stay ready, especially, and then you're ready to go. Same thing with life, with the faith-based stuff. Stay ready, stay faithful, and networking. That's a big thing that I love to do. I'm a big networker, connector. Love to talk to people. You always find something in common with them. All you got to do is just ask, smile, and say hi. You never know where those conversations might lead to. And then just positivity. I like whenever you put out into the world is what you get back. I always just try to instill that positive attitude.
This is the Fit Investor Podcast, where we talk about how to live a more holistic life of being fit, not only financially, but physically and faithfully. We'll be joined by experts in all these areas to share their experiences and actionable and practical tips so that you can be a fit investor too. So now let's join our hosts, Cale Delaney and Brenna Carls.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fit Investor. I'm your host, Cale Delaney, and today our special guest is Mr. Tony Amigleo. And Tony has got a lot of cool things that we're going to be talking about here. But Tony was actually he developed the first MMA fighter app, COM, in 2010. He started a marketing agency in 2009, Transcend Agency. He's worked with many notable icons like UFC, Nike, Under Armour, GoPro, Fox, ESPN, it goes on. He's also worked with professional athletes, Penn, Silva, Kron Gracie, Manny Pacquiao. This guy's got some cool stuff. He started training Jiu Jitsu in 2012, acquired Moskova from Quiksilver in 2016, and he started the STR journey in 2021. And that's where his focus is now, and some things going on with pad splits. So we're excited to dive in and explore all these topics because these are all very interesting. So Tony, welcome to the Fit Investor.
Thanks, Hill. Definitely excited to be here and looking forward to firing away.
Yeah. And we'll open it up with letting you tell us a little bit more about yourself and everything. But I just wanted to bring this up for our audience. Say we met in Austin, was it last year at a meetup?
Yeah.
And as I already mentioned, you're into jiu-jitsu and everything. And it's funny. One of the things I always see with people who have been practicing jiu-jitsu for a long time is that they can turn you into a pretzel in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
They're like the calmest people ever. And so that was my impression when I met you. I was like, yeah, I know this guy could whoop me like crazy. But he's so calm. Like I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit. I think it was in with a mindset of jiu-jitsu, but
Yeah.
I always think it's funny. Anyway, tell us a little bit about yourself, Tony.
Yeah, Cale, we met in Austin. I think we met a couple of times and got to hang out with you at a quick luncheon. And I was like, saw this guy, Cale, big buff guy. And I was like, yeah, man, I think I want to hang out with this guy and talk a little bit. And especially with you being in the investor space, had a lot of questions and stuff. Very excited about the journey and all that stuff. But again, yeah, very fortunate to start off in the MMA space, a marketing space. Did that for a while and worked with, again, many great athletes and took a lot of pieces of what they do and how they do it into my life. Penn's been mentor Silva, Manny Pacquiao, and then most recently I worked with Max Holloway, who is a UFC legend. All of them are UFC legends, but most recently, Max Holloway, he's just got great work ethic, good person. Those things I take from that and then molding it into my jiu-jitsu journey and all that stuff. So started jiu-jitsu like in 2012 time, but been doing that and then fell into the short-term rental space in regards to started off as loans. So I did loans moving out into Austin, and from there did a lot of investor type of loans, and that's how I got involved into a company that did ID check verification. And then also because of the short-term rental space, was fortunate enough to start a little show called the Investment Property Show that actually showed here in Austin on Sunday mornings. Started that with actually a jiu-jitsu friend of mine. So a lot of connections from jiu-jitsu. Ron Yackerson gave me a TV show and we did that. We actually featured a lot of realtors and short-term rental homes on that. So it was like a show on Sunday morning called the Investment Property Show. That kind of catapulted into the investment space. From there, I worked with a short-term rental management company, one of the biggest in the industry internationally. Did that for a stint. And then recently now I work with a amazing company on the the co-living space, shared housing space, which is pad split. Journey from there to there was just been fortunate and blessed. But starting off in the real estate industry, I guess I had the bug just from my dad. So my dad, I grew up in Hawaii. I saw my dad's wealth accumulate through real estate, right? So he was in the military, very hardworking. And I saw him like acquire properties after property in Hawaii. I think we had about 5 long-term rental properties in Hawaii. I would help him a couple things. He was his own property manager, very old school. Go out and fix the houses. I'd come out, go out there and help him with some of the stuff whenever I can. I was like a 12, 10-year-old kid just running around, but whatever help I could do. And then also collect the rents with him. That was like another thing, very old school as far as collecting checks and getting that. So I saw him do that, very hardworking. He was in the military, in the Navy. He was a military kid, but he was very hardworking on that. And through that, he acquired his wealth in Hawaii, going to about 5 houses and then parlaying that into the dream house in Hawaii that he had, that him and my mom lived in for a couple of years. And then they most recently sold it about 5 years ago. So now they're retired in California. So they acquired their wealth that way. But the values that were instilled on me there had to do a lot with my faith, right? My mom and dad are devout Catholics. I was raised Catholic, big faith-based family. Sundays was a big thing as far as, going to church, every Sunday. I went to Catholic elementary school, high school, and then I also went to Loyola Marymount University, which is a Catholic Jesuit-based university. So, yeah, so that's a lot to take in, but we can stem up as far as what you want to do and how we want to take this. But yeah, a lot of my values come from obviously parents, faith, and then my love for jiu-jitsu on that set.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. And I think all these things tie into each other. And what we just explored your faith background a little bit more. So you said your parents were already devout Catholics when you were born and raised.
Right.
And I always ask this because it can either go one of two ways typically when the parents are trying to raise their kids in the faith. You can see that the children continue on with it, or sometimes they go the complete opposite direction.
Right.
And so I always like to ask, was there anything perhaps in your parents' upbringing of you that you can think of that encouraged you to continue on versus when accept it and make it personal versus just having the head knowledge and going your own way?
Yeah, absolutely. The community is a big part of it, right? And having that faith in God and having that in your heart creates a good base. So with that being said, through all of that, I was fortunate to go to Loyola Marymount Jesuit College, met my wife there. We've been married for a long time, had 4 kids. All of our kids went to Catholic school. So we raised them on that end up until about middle school. And then from there, we had the values for that. And then they went on to public high school. But the biggest thing is just the values, just giving back, just daily prayer, faith. That stuff is important for me. It gives a good base. Everybody does have that, but I think that in the form of faith-based with the Catholic Church and stuff.
And how now with you having 4 kids, like you just mentioned, how now do you try to parent them to instill these values and encourage them in the journey?
Yeah, it's different now, right? My kids have their own, they're much older now. So they have that, I'm free to make the choices that they want. But I know that they are faith-based as far as going to church and understanding Christianity and God and faith and all that stuff. I just ask them, hey, do you pray? That's the type of thing. Like, how are you doing? Oh, you went to church. I say, I went to church this weekend. Just keep it a casual conversation like that versus me trying to, in my time with my mother, she's very, Catholic and prays the rosary every day. And I think that's part of how they were brought up and part of their culture. But it's just always been an important part of my life. And I try to pass that on to my kids. And they're aware of it. Some of them make their own decisions as far as what they do. But I know that faith is a very important part of their lives. So and I remind them as much as I can. So,
yeah. And I'm just curious, did you see, like you had mentioned with your father and his properties, you would help him out as a young child. Did you see at all perhaps extending his faith-based values in the way that he managed his properties or his business or anything along those lines?
Yeah, he was always down to help, right? So if that part of the giving sense, I would always see my dad helping out the tenants in his property. It's part of that giving sense. If just to take, for example, I know that one of his tenants had a hard time making a payment or having a car. He would, yeah, I remember one time he actually not gave his car, discounted it at a very lower price so that this guy could have a car. Those are the things that really stuck out to me. And I remember for my father as far as being he was fair and stern with his tenants, but as far as giving back whenever the opportunity was there, he would always remind us that we're lucky to have food on our table. Prayers was a very important part of that, and always giving back to the community.
No, that's good. And do you recall like when your faith in Christ became personal? Because again, I know oftentimes growing up in a faith-based household, you can sometimes have that head knowledge and take it for, well, maybe that's not the right way to say it. I was going to say take it for granted a little bit, but yeah, we can have the head knowledge of the gospel, but not
Mhm.
truly make it personal and make that relationship with Christ. I'm just curious if you recall when it was and if there were any circumstances around that timeline that really led you to build that personal relationship.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a funny question you ask because I just up and down just think of like different things. And I don't know. I was an altar boy for the Catholic Church, so it's always been instilled in me. But I continue to pray on a daily basis. But that moment of aha, this is always going to be part of my life. I think I with my mom, it's always just been a reminder from her about prayer, and I see her praying every day. And it for me, I think it's an important part of it because it works. I seriously think it does work. When things go bad or things are great, it's always prayer and thanks and gratitude that I always come back to. And I don't know. It's just, I think that as a young age or maybe even in high school when the lights turned on and saying, yeah, this is like something that I am into versus being a kid and having to go to church and waking up on Sunday going like, why are we doing this type of thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if
And
that makes sense. Yeah.
and how was it going to a Catholic university? Did that help bolster your faith? And perhaps even for people, because I'm part of my high school youth group at church, leaders there and present of the kids who are graduating and thinking about college and
Yeah.
figure out what they're going to do. Like for someone who's gone to a Catholic or a Christian university, do you have any thoughts on what the experience is like? Because I think some kids, let's just face it, oftentimes
Yeah.
kids just college to
Yeah.
have a good time.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
versus be serious about something. Perhaps do you have any, words of wisdom or can share what that experience was like for someone who's maybe considering a Catholic or a Christian university?
Yeah, I had an amazing I loved it because again, community, right? And I went to church on I remember Sunday night mass was a thing to go to at Loyola Marymount University. So that and then also I volunteered at what's called the Crimson Circle. So it was like a give back organization. I did that my last 2 years at Loyola Marymount and created some great friendships and values, like more values as far as giving back to the community there. And ironically, I just thought about this just now. My daughters went to Malibu or Pepperdine and then also to TCU, Texas Christian University, which are both faith-based universities also. Wasn't Catholic, but at least it's faith-based, right? So Christianity and faith, it does instill a lot of what we talk about, the values, giving back, gratitude, those are the things everybody has it, but I think that if you're a good human being, I think that's the most important part of it, and then just being able to build upon that.
Yeah. No, I just always find it interesting. And so I'm curious, I want to segue into it a little bit here too, but I feel that there's a lot of similarities in values between not only from Christian faith, but also in the disciplines and values in Jiu Jitsu.
Sure.
And so I wanted to explore that a little bit and see if you see those same parallels or what that's in. We can explore your Jiu Jitsu journey a bit.
Yeah, I do, and I think that the way that I see that is just kinda dedication,
Mhm.
right? So that's where that I think falls in. I've thought about that daily prayer or going to church or wherever you go to every Sunday, and thinking about having that same type of community draws parallels to however you train, whether that, and that's why I have utmost respect for people that either train in weights or CrossFit or some sort of martial art that really dedicate themselves. So that's where the parallels come about that I see, is that people with faith have that set schedule as far as I'm going to pray every day, or I'm going to go to church on Sundays, or I'm going to go to church every day, or whatever it is. And the same thing for jujitsu or training, whether that be weights and stuff, you have a dedicated type of agenda or mindset where I want to go to the gym or I want to train, that in that way. As far as the jiu-jitsu community, we're all like-minded individuals. And that's another thing that I love about it, right? So everybody's like-minded individuals as far as we're there to train, have a good time. And at the end of the day, we all have jobs, so we're not out to hurt each other or anything like that. But that's where I think it falls as far as like the dedication goes and that sense of community. So,
Right. Yeah. And I think from what I've seen, I mentioned this to you, I have very limited experience personally with jiu-jitsu, but my 3 kids are doing it. And I watch them and listen to the professors and everything. And to see it's often, I think integrity is promoted a lot.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And the way it was explained to me was that practicing jujitsu and how it maybe differs from some other martial arts is that you should have and it leads into how I introduced earlier, and that oftentimes serious jujitsu people are very calm. It teaches to have a quiet confidence, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that the intent of jujitsu is never to start a fight.
Yep.
To, if one does start, to subdue your opponent as quick as you can with the least amount of injury.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's actually a great point. So it's humbleness, right? Being humble and knowing, and that's what we teach. My professors, I started off in San Clemente, California, my jiu-jitsu journey. So Paulo Guillabel in San Clemente, he was a big part of that. He has the kid recite a mantra of jiu-jitsu, being kind and courteous and all that stuff. And then now here in Austin, I'm with Guillermo Campos over at Atos Jiu-Jitsu. But yeah, it's a lifestyle, right? So he always tells the kids being humble, not being a bully. And then with that, it's amazing to see the confidence level of these kids. And I'm sure you'll probably see it with your kids, Kale, right? When they go in there, I love seeing these kids at 5, 6 years old. And we ask the parents, why did you join jiu-jitsu? Couple things. One, my kid's rambunctious and he likes to jump around and he's a boy. Another thing is my kid lacks confidence. He's bullied at school, right? With jiu-jitsu, we teach the kids, obviously, don't be a bully. That's like the last thing you want to do, right? 2 is just keeping calm. 3 is just being aware, right? Those are the things that are instilled in that as far as with jiu-jitsu. So my professors are just amazing with that, with the kids, to see the progression. You see them 6 months later, the way they walk, the way they talk, the way that they are, but it's always that humbleness. And we always remind them on a daily basis, this is not jiu-jitsu. The best thing about jiu-jitsu is that if there's a fight, the best thing to do is just walk away and learning how to walk away.
Right.
Or controlling, like what you said, controlling the opponent and then walking away. That's the big thing.
Yeah. And like you said, it takes extreme discipline. And the people who have been in it for a long time, like you said, it becomes a lifestyle. And, it's, like I said, I just think it's when you're meeting someone who's like serious into jiu-jitsu, like you just know it, that vibe that they
Yeah.
need.
Yeah. It's funny, you guys with either like the ears or the jiu-jitsu shirt. And whenever I see guys in that I know are training, you give that nod like, hey, what's up? Because it's a lifestyle thing. There's just respect on that. And jiu-jitsu has opened up so many doors for me that I'm just so blessed to be part of, working with BJ Penn, working with the top athletes, Max Holloway, Anderson Silva. And then the network of it has just been incredible. I met a lot of my best friends in this and we all just share the same values and stuff. And it's a fun group of people. My son, Tanner, he has the opportunity over here at the Comedy Mothership here in Austin, Texas, Joe Rogan's place. And all those guys in there they train jiu-jitsu. They're all 10th planet guys. And me being there first time when my son performed at the comedy mothership, they asked me if I train, and it's like, yes. And just from that alone, it's just respect. And they're like, oh, where do you train? What do you do? And it's okay, we'll take care of you kind of thing. So it's that community that is just amazing. And I love it. Yeah.
So how did it come about with, maybe tell us a little bit more about your experience in working with some of these professional athletes, and what did that entail?
With BJ, we did the marketing. I helped him do some of his marketing and take it to a different level on that. He was already a champion, and I was fortunate enough to be part of that journey. And we created the first MMA app called the bjpenn.com app, and it debuted, I think it was like at number 10 or 11 on the App Store. So that was very exciting as far as doing that, yeah, technology wise. But for him, it was just the dedication and just being this freak athlete. Getting his black belt in 3 years was,
Wow.
so it normally takes 10 years to get, but he was just a freak kind of athlete where he was just gifted. And that was where God came in and said, hey, you're going to be he was like the first American to win the Mundials, which is the jiu-jitsu world. And again, he did it in 3 years. He was just a beast, still is a beast. And then with Max Holloway, enough said with that guy. His dedication and me being able to work with him has just been a blessing. Both athletes from Hawaii, grew up there and had the opportunity to meet all these guys. But Max is just a true gentleman. His work ethic is second to none. So I can just see his dedication, and when he puts his mind to things, you see it. The guy's a champion, and he just became the BMF champion. That, like, UFC 300 was like one of the most exciting fights that I've seen. He puts everything out on the line. So I try to instill all those values into what I can control or what I take from it.
And I think another thing too that, and this probably lead into the business section of things, but I think the other thing that jiu-jitsu probably helps instill or helps develop is being in uncomfortable situations and how to stay calm and how to resolve them, which so many different arenas, not just with the jiu-jitsu, but I think that's probably one of the huge skill sets that I would imagine it teaches you.
It does, yeah. So staying calm and just being present. So for my thing is, like, for a jiu-jitsu journey, it's being a white belt. I was a white belt for, I think, 19 months or whatever, but you're put in these situations where they suck. So I think that Jocko, one of his phrases is enjoy the soccer. Being put in bad situations is part of the journey, and learning how to deal with those bad situations where you're stuck in side control, you're stuck in mount. And instead of giving up positions where you're put into worse positions, you've got to stay calm and figure out, you can advance into either a better situation or a better move and not get submitted, right? Being present and being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. But the journey is trying to get better 1% or 1 second at a time is how I see it in a 6-minute fight or 6-minute round match with my Professor Campos, and his brother. They are absolute beasts, Guto, and rolling with them, it's a different type of role because they've been jiu-jitsu black belts longer than I've been practicing my whole journey. They play around with us where they put us in bad situations and they see how we react, so that being comfortable, but you really have to stay present. And that's why I love the sport too, is that it gives me the opportunity to clear my mind of whatever's going on, whatever stress I have, right? Whether that be I've got to make a payment, or I'm running short this, or I've got to close on a deal, or where's my next deal coming from? Or gosh, I wish that offer got accepted on that deal that I put out for a home. All of that goes away when you're in jiu-jitsu or martial arts or training. I think that's why people are attracted to it, because you have to stay present and in the moment, and it's an art, right? It's very creative. My thing is that with the creativity, that's why I love jiu-jitsu, because it's never ending. The way that your body type is versus somebody else's body type is, I can't use the way that I roll with you versus somebody that, that is a different body type. It's an art. And that's why I think that also, like, surfing is also a big cross into it, because surfing's like an art. You're very just free form and, what you want to do and how you tackle the wave because it's different. And the same thing with jiu-jitsu. This guy is different, that guy's different, but the end goal is to either control or submit. So,
Yeah. And while you were talking, I was just thinking perhaps another parallel with personality is that it teaches you not to rely on your own strength.
Good point. Yeah.
That was something, like I said, I did a very brief stint of it years ago, but that was something that was made evident to me right away because, like I'm a weightlifter. I'd like to consider myself relatively strong. So when I would get in and we would start rolling, my natural instinct is to use my strength, right?
Yeah. Mash. Yeah.
You find out you get tired really.
Yeah.
If the other guy just stays calm and waits you out, you're going to be done and over with before
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the same thing with faith. I'm surprised. Yeah. That's actually a good analogy with that. It's just staying strong throughout because things waver in your life. And I'm thinking about that as we speak. That's actually a great point. Things happen in your life that are unexpected or expected, whether good or bad. But it's just staying consistent and having the strength and the faith. You have faith in your technique in jiu-jitsu, right? So faith in whatever religion you practice, or especially on the faith base, it's just staying strong with it. So it's actually a pretty good analogy. I like that.
Hey guys, it's Brenna Carl, CEO and co-founder of The Mortgage Shop. When I'm not spending my time searching for the best pizza in town, working out, well, because of pizza, or fighting sharks as Kale likes to say, I spend my time educating clients on the best investment products that will help them build generational wealth and making sure their loan process is as smooth as warm butter on a piece of toast. Call us today to get started with your investment journey at 800-816-7982 or, to talk more about pizza. Talk to you soon.
So let's segue it into the business a little bit. We touched on some of the skill sets. I think that jiu-jitsu probably helps instill that some transition into the business atmosphere. But take us through that now. And you mentioned at the beginning where you're at now. You started in the short-term rental space a few years ago, and now you're involved in the co-living space right now with Pad Split. So why don't you tell us about that? And
yeah, I love Pad Split. At first, when I thought about it, okay, co-living, great. And moving transition from STR to MTR, LTR, right? So that's where we live as far as the Pad Split piece goes. But what's nice about it is that Atticus LeBlanc, who's our founder of it, they're based out of Atlanta. Our mantra, do good, do well, right? I don't know if you know the mission of Pad Split and how that all comes about, but our purpose and our mission is to help solve the affordable housing crisis one room at a time while leveraging housing as a vehicle for financial empowerment. So what does that mean, right? And I never really thought about this, but until they really broke it down and gave us what goes on in the landscape of real estate nowadays, is that affordable housing is a big thing. It's a huge crisis because anybody that makes less than $50,000, $60,000 per year, they cannot get traditional rents because it's hard because of just the economic conditions. What do those people do? They either have to live at home with their parents, or they got to live in their car, or they got to live in a really bad area. The founder, Atticus, and his team were like, hey, there is a crisis here. Let's help solve it. And they help out people that have an affordability issue or workforce housing. And these are workforce housing people you wouldn't really think about, like your grocery market checker, your Uber drivers, hospitality industry, people that work at TSA, people that work in the hospitals, like the administrative. Those people make less than $50,000, $60,000 per year. Where do they live? They normally have to drive out like 45 minutes or an hour outside of the city. Or again, some of them unfortunately have to live in cars, or they have to couch surf and stuff. But we give them that opportunity here at Pad Split to stay in a home for a weekly rate. And then our average stay on those people is like 6 to 8 months. For the investor, the average occupancy is 90%. So it's a good fit for the investor, and then also for our members who we're helping out, because we also have a member system where we're putting them on a track towards financial stability. So we report to the credit agencies for them so that their credit scores start to come up. We also have plans for them to start to save money and figure out how can you become an owner of a home. A lot of people think that, oh, pad split, all you're doing is just squeezing a whole bunch of people into a room and it creates. Absolutely false. That's not what we do. We help our members attain financial stability. We give them a great pillow to sleep on. And then we also help them with their financial situation. And then for the investor, we help them as far as some of their non-depreciation assets or the ones that are not performing on the ROI conversion, either from a short-term rental over to a pad split is another one. Or if people want to offload their properties, that's another thing too. But yeah, with pad split, it's been a great journey. And it really resonated with me at the Invest Her conference that happened this week. The founders, Andresa and Liz Faircloth, our booth, I honestly, it humbled me because it was actually the busiest booth at the conference. They were talking about co-living and all this. Go visit their booth and see what you want to do. So there's a lot of like hearsay as far as what is pad split, what do they do? And I've just been blessed to be part of it. So the last day I actually went and heard, I don't know if Pamela Barty, do you know Pamela Barty? She's, like a outlier of an investor. She's like at a very young age, a teen. She's from back east. She's an avid real estate investor and she gave her journey. But her thing was like always have an exit strategy for your investments or your real estate investments. And she gave 6 different things as far as condo conversion, multifamily and all this. And the last thing she had was actually co-living, which is like a big thing. She's actually on the path to take these container homes and actually co-living on those properties. And she gave like a shout out to pad split, which was very unexpected. But yeah, it's just, I'm fortunate and blessed to be part of this journey with pad split. And just something that I thought of, oh yeah, another company that I'm going to join, but it ended up being such a blessing. So.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. And the concept has been around forever, right? And,
Europe is like, that's their jam is co-living. So because of the space issue and the proximity, it's just part of their culture.
Yeah. And formalizing it and centralizing it and providing that easy platform now to make it more mainstream. And I think it solves a lot of challenges in today's economy. You were talking about the workforce or low income housing, certainly helps facilitate with that. And then on the flip side, from the investor standpoint, of course, as real estate investors, we're always looking to get the best possible return we can in certain parameters. And the short-term rental space has become very popular and very competitive. Long-term rental is another ball game and not necessarily a cash flow ball game.
Yeah.
Short term, and looking for those happy mediums that can provide some better returns than your traditional long terms, perhaps somewhat less of the competition, at least at this point of the industry, and something a little bit different than the midterm rental. So it's just another one of these strategies that we can have in our toolbox as investors, depending on market conditions and how the economy is going to go, and it solves different things that are going on. So I think it has great applications on both sides of the coin, both as the investor and as the actual tenant, like you explained. So I think it's about time that we have a centralized platform or resource for that. And today's economy is going more and more towards the acceptance of a sharing economy, right?
Yeah. And you have to, right? It's housing prices are up, cost of living is up, wages aren't equating to that. So this is another vehicle for investors and for the community to help alleviate that. Again, like what you said, for long-term rentals, if you're getting a traditional home that you're renting out a 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom house, 2-bath at $2,100 per month. And then if you pad split it in regards to what we do, and as far as maximizing square footage in that home, why we convert living rooms into bedrooms and then also dining rooms into bedrooms, obviously by code, it's all done to code. But again, that 4-2 becomes a 6-2 or 7-2, and you rent out by the room. So instead of getting $2,100 per month on the SF single family rental, you're getting about $5,600 on the pad split. So that's where it really, the numbers don't lie and it really makes sense. Obviously, you've got to take a look at the conversion or whatever interest rate you're at or the acquisition. So those things all put into play. So
can you just give us a rundown of the process? Our audience here is primarily investors. From the investor standpoint, interested in looking into pad split, like what is the process? If they have a home that they're interested in exploring this, like what is the process?
Yeah, we're slowly growing, fast, but slow but fast, if that makes sense. So we started back in like 2018. We started in Atlanta. We have in 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago, we had 12,000 doors or units across the United States. In the 3 weeks since then, we've climbed up to 13,000, like real quick. The process of pad split is we're like Airbnb, right? So we're Airbnb of the midterm and long-term rental space. So we're a two-sided marketplace where we actually bring in members to take a look at properties. And then we also help the investors list their properties on there. We're in 19 major marketplaces. And in those core markets, as we like to call them, we have 4 buckets that we help out the investor. And that's where our technology engine really comes into place. The first thing is that we advertise on Google. We spend about $400,000 per month to attract members on there. So if you were to type in roommate in, what city are you in? I forget what city you're in, Cal. West Palm Beach. So on Google, those first hits will be pad split reference hits. So it helps attract the members on that way. So we list on 60 major sites. We SEO it on Google. The other thing we do is we actually vet the members on the property. Going into the property, we do an income verification, employment verification. We make sure that there's no evictions for that member coming into the pad split community. And then also we do a credit check. We make sure that whatever that weekly rate is, let's say $200, that they make at least $400 per month. And then we also have a member verification or check system where each member is rated by the other members in the house. So they want to make sure that they're at that 5-star member rating so that they stay within the platform and they're a good member or good tenant, right? So if they were to transfer, that stays with them. The other thing we do is we also collect the payments for those members. So we collect on a weekly basis. So that assures them instead of having a monthly payment of whatever, a bigger payment of $1,000 at the end of the month, what we found is that breaking up week by week, that they pay week by week, is much easier. Therefore, the collection rate is at 97%. So we have that technology engine on the front end that can layer up into any system that you have, as far as whether it be a pad split itself or you're converting it to a short-term rental or a long-term rental. That's what it is. So that's what our property management fee on that is, the 8%. So we do about 70-80% of the heavy lifting on the property management side. And that's what you're buying into on that. So we charge 8% per month on that. So, yeah.
So pad split actually, when you say pad split manages it,
So we manage it inside, like the people problems inside, if there are people problems, and then also the collection. So we manage the people inside, right? So we bring members in, we vet the guests in, we collect the money. We also have an internal communication system within the system saying, okay, on June 10th at between 3 and 5, the maintenance person is going to come in there, or the cleaning crew is going to come into your property and clean. We do not take care of the cleanings. We don't take care of if there's a light bulb that needs to be changed or toilet needs to be clogged. You can message it on the app, okay? And then we tell either the investor, or we highly encourage having a property manager go in there or add a layer to ours. But that, again, the property manager isn't doing a lot of the heavy lifting. That's why we have it at a reduced cost for that property manager that does that. But we have actually a good ecosystem of that at Pad Split, where we have vetted property managers that understand our business model so they can do all that. And then we also provide like contractors for that, so they help you conversion. And then we also have like loan consultants or loan companies that understand that process. So we created also an ecosystem per city so that we can help you out. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the in the short-term rental space, one of the least liked components is the guest communications.
Yeah.
So does Pad Split handle all the correspondence with tenants, and the owner just deals with Pad Split if there's any?
We do. So anything like, congratulations, you're welcome to the community. Here are your homes that you can search for. And then from there, it's all communicated electronically. The people problems like, hey, bedroom 1 ate my peanut butter to bedroom 2. We will interject and they're saying like, hey, these are house rules. Please do not do that. Or bedroom 2 complains that bedroom 3 is making noise at 10:30 at night and it's quiet hours. So we will contact that guest and say, please keep it down. But every member that's going in there has like expectations, right? So they know what they're walking into. Any type of criminality, they're automatically kicked out. Any type of violence, they're automatically kicked out or taken off the platform. Quiet hours are from this to that. Do not make noise during that time. Please be respectful. So obviously, members, you're walking into something that you know because you sign a member agreement with Pad Split.
Okay. So as an owner or investor, if you're running a Pad Split, you're not going to have to be interacting with the tenants.
No, the only time that you interact with them is if you have a property manager that actually checks in the guest. But again, the way we take that out of the equation is that we have keypads that can get changed per room too. So there's a code to get into the house. And then after that, here's your code at door room number 2. And it has your keyless entry in there so that they just check in that way. The only thing where somebody is actually physically involved is, and I'm just going to put it out there because it does happen, is evictions, right? Let's say that there is a point, unfortunately, that we have to evict a member and it happens only 3% of the time versus 6 to 9% on the national average. Yeah, we facilitate that action, and then either the proper manager files the eviction notices and helps escort, take out the guests. But again, it rarely happens at 3%.
And then as far as filling up the rooms, is it, again, coming from the STR world, is it similar to an Airbnb type platform where, you've got to make sure your listing's tight and all that type of things, or does Pad Split have any type of like active like matching services? You know what I'm trying to
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, you can go on the Pad Split, www.padsplit.com. You can take a look at the areas that we're in, like our major markets, and it will pull up the rooms, right? It will pull up different rooms. It will have a picture of the room itself. So in that room, it's like you're moving into a dorm, right? So we have the bed. We encourage the host, the investor. You have to have a bed frame, right? A nightstand and a lamp. And if there's no closet in the room, then obviously provide like an armoire or some sort of like dresser. And then also to help with the member experience is have a desk and a desk chair. So those are the things that we highly encourage. From there, they take like high quality photos of it, and then they list it on the Pad Split site, and it will be whatever the going market rate is. Obviously, if you have your own bathroom, it's a highly desirable. That's why it's a much higher price point versus if you're having to share your bathroom with 2 or 3 other members on the site, right? As far as the kitchen goes, what we have is obviously a stove and microwave, refrigerator, okay? And then also laundry and all that, or just laundry, but we don't fully stock the kitchens like it is in Airbnb, okay? So each member gets assigned a cabinet, like what we like to say in the kitchen, and they bring in their own plate and they bring in their own pans, because we try to manage and minimize if there's communal pans and communal plates, then it becomes like, hey, bedroom 2 is not doing their dishes. And so everybody's responsible for their own thing. But we found that majority of our members anyways, they do a lot of like takeout anyways. So it's a lot of takeout, a lot of heating in the microwave. Nobody's doing like gourmet cooking or anything like that. They can, more likely than not. What we found, it's not that case. But yeah, we do list it on the Pad Split site. They have a chance to look at it. And if they like it, boom, you go in there and you can move in within 3 days.
Okay. So yeah, as the investor, you still have to be proactive in your efforts to try to make sure you're filling any when a vacancy comes up.
Yeah. I just met this weekend at the investor conference, this gal investor named Macarena, and she understands our model, but she elevates it a little bit more. And it's like that with the short-term rental space, right? So you always want to elevate your listings and make it better so that when clean and your property stands out. And just through that, it allows you to increase your rental rate or your weekly rate by X amount of dollars. Just the way it looks, if it's clean, if it's modern, it's the same way. It's just adding that extra special touch where I like to think of it as a couple things. Would I put my daughter in that situation for her to move in, or my wife to move in? Would she feel comfortable? And think of it that way, right? If you have a sister or wife, would you put your wife in that situation where they're comfortable to live there in that community? So we obviously target B to C type neighborhoods for the investor so that the acquisition cost isn't so high and no HOA. But on the inside of the home, think about that, right? Would you let your wife or your sister or whoever it is, or your son, if he's at that point, live at that place?
Right.
So
Yeah. Don't be a slumlord. Right.
yeah, exactly. Don't be a slumlord. Yeah.
And can you do it? Does it have to be the entire house, or does this apply if you wanted to like house hack your own home? Like, can we do it?
Yeah, the only way that would apply is if you had a duplex. So if you lived on one side, then you would take care of that. You could list your own. But if you have the other side, you'd have to rent out that whole space. But if you have a single family rental, no, you could not house hack by living in one room and then pad splitting the rest. We discourage of that. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
yeah, and again, we got a lot of real estate people, a lot of short-term rental people as our audience, and I think it has a lot of parallels. Offers another interesting solution for getting some decent returns in today's economy.
Yeah.
Urge everyone to check it out, and if people do want to explore it a bit and get in touch with you to talk about it, Tony, what are the best ways to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can hit me up on Instagram, at Tony Amigleo, or you can hit me up at tony@padsplit.com. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm at Tony Amigleo. Very easy. And from there, I can route it to whatever area. If you're looking at Miami or Fort Lauderdale, those biggest markets that are growing right now, just real quickly, Phoenix, Ellis is the rep up there. We have our Las Vegas. We've got Gianni out there and Mandisa. So we're very connected in that space, and then also Florida, but we've teamed up with Pace Morby. He's a big investor we teamed up with in that the Bigger Pockets area has put their stamp of approval on us. Mark Cuban is actually a big investor into PadSplit. So all those guys have, especially Mark Cuban's got that mentality of do good for the community, do well. He's an active investor on that. Jamil, and then there's a bunch of people that are into it. Tarek from the house show. So there's a bunch of people that are involved on that side. But yeah, that's the easiest way to get hold of me, Tony at PadSplit, at LinkedIn or Instagram, just DM me, or even Facebook. Yeah.
Awesome. And so we always like to ask our guests to leave our audience with 3 actionable or practical tips based on what we talked about today.
Yeah. So 3 things: stay ready, always be ready. And I think I got that just from the MMA space, from BJ Penn and Max Holloway. Stay ready. So these guys, like, if somebody falls out of the fight or they need to fight, they're always ready. So if you stay ready, especially, and then you're ready to go. Same thing with life, with the faith-based stuff. Stay ready, stay faithful. And on the investor end, get all your finances in order, be ready. If you've got a property you want to go, stay ready. The other thing is always networking. That's a big thing that I love to do. I'm a big networker, connector, love to talk to people. I used to be scared about talking to people and just coming up to them, but you always find something in common with them. All you got to do is just ask, smile, and say hi. You never know where those conversations might lead to. So always that. And then the last part about that with networking is just positivity. I like whenever you put out into the world is what you get back. I instill that with my kids, and I feel it. When I feel energy from Kale, when I first met you, I'm like, dude, this guy has good energy. This is somebody that I want to hang out with. I always try to put out good energy, positive energy, whether I feel bad or whatever, but I always just try to instill that positive attitude, so that positive vibes, man, right?
Awesome. This is great, Tony. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and sharing some insights into PadSplit here. I'm sure our audience is going to take aways from this. So I appreciate your time. And ladies and gentlemen, just stay tuned for another episode of The Fit Investor.
Right on. Thanks, Kale. Appreciate it.